Thanks very much, and start off, especially if you see if the system is sending the nameplate as David Beasley, which I think it may be doing. He regrets that he cannot be at this session today, and asked me to speak on his behalf, and I'm delighted to do so because it was with working very closely with my colleague Laurent Thomas, the DDG in FAO, that we were both working together at the time of the birth of the food security cluster, and that we're only celebrating our 10th anniversary when other clusters are older is about revealing a gap that came up out in the system. When the cluster idea was first formulated, there was a sense that there wasn't a need for a food security cluster because food security would be managed by FAO and WFP anyway. But I think what that didn't take into account was that the food security cluster is exactly that. It's a cluster, it's an amalgamation of all of us. And it's not just FAO and WFP, but it's about true partnership and across the system. And I think that is no better highlighted than the very difficult circumstance we find ourselves in today as we face, basically a generational health crisis with COVID-19. But what it has done, it has revealed the impact and the integration of so many of the different areas that we all work in, with food security being actually paramount to many. I mean, when we look at today, 690 million people who are hungry. That's gone up over the last year. It risks going up as a result of the COVID crisis. We also know that 10 out of 13 of the world's worst food crises today are in conflict areas. So, and combining that with the impact of climate change and now COVID. So in a sense, we sometimes think of these three C's of climate, conflict, and COVID, and many places facing all three at the same time. So a coordinated approach. The fourth C, using cluster, the fifth C. So one would hope that the fourth C and the fifth C will help us manage the impact of the first three Cs. And it really is in that spirit that I'm delighted to speak today on this anniversary of the food security cluster. I think, as I've said, with COVID-19 and the scope of food security operations that are growing almost at a dizzying speed. I mean, when the food security cluster requirements and what is in all the various different humanitarian response plans and appeals, today food and agriculture and dealing with food security issues account for over $9 billion of humanitarian fundings. That's more than 3 times the amount that were in those similar appeals when the food security cluster was born just 10 years ago. So for all organizations, all of us, organizations, partners, all of us working in this area, we need to focus on the vulnerable, focus on the hungry, and be driven by the food security cluster's core values, and that really is about integrating us, coordinating across, but doing so with integrity, humanity, and inclusion. And we really rely on those. But we also rely on the coordination within the cluster to make sure that there are no duplications, because there's far too much need that we duplicate effort. But in as much as we also then look to make sure that there are no gaps and that the limited funds that we have should not be invested poorly. We need to invest them where we will get greatest return. And it is that where I believe the food security cluster plays such a critical role, ensuring that we all move forward together, we all move forward in a coordinated manner. So WFP as an institution, with its executive director at its head, an IASC principal, and a strong group of humanitarians, we believe strongly in this need to work together and to address those impacts of the three C's, of crises, conflicts, COVID, climate. You know, it seems that all the nasty things seem to start with C, but as I said, we got coordination and clusters, so we got a couple of good C's in there as well. So we are committed to this. We do recognize the importance. We do have two other clusters that we lead on in logistics and telecommunications, but I think the one that is really at our heart is this one, that with our sister agency FAO, that we lead with pride on this one. And talking of pride, I guess, you know, we are supposed to be humble about it, but we can't miss an opportunity when we're speaking to a large group to say what being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize and being a Nobel laureate for this year meant. But it means not for us. For those of you, many of you watching who are our cluster partners, this was a recognition of what we all do, our sister agencies like FAO and others, but you are partners in this job that we do of coordinating through the cluster and delivering the best that we can to people in crisis. So we reckon, unfortunately, ahead of us are new challenges, unprecedented needs, and a need for us to continue leveraging our innovation, leveraging our technology, but above all, leveraging our ability to coordinate, to cluster our effort. With that, I would just say a final C, celebration. It's important in all of these times of difficulty that we do celebrate milestones. And what better milestone that with that huge hill of need and effort ahead of us, that we celebrate the milestone that was the creation, yet another C, of this great cluster. So with that, just to assure all of you watching that WFP, along with our sisters FAO, are committed, yet one more C, to ensuring the success of this cluster. So happy anniversary, Food Security Cluster, and the teams who run this. I mean, I think Laurent, Thomas, and I would just be absolutely, we are over the moon to see where it's come in those 10 years. Thank you very much.